The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, delivered by a courier in a suit that cost more than Linda Torres's monthly rent. Inside was a check for $480,000 and a handwritten letter that began, "20 years ago, you saved my life in the ring." Linda stared at the signature. The name meant nothing to her. But the date at the top of the letter, August 14th, that date she remembered. How could she forget? It was the night everything changed. 20 years earlier, the storm hit Seattle like a fist. Rain hammered the pavement in sheets so thick Linda could barely see 3 feet ahead. She was already soaked through, her second-hand jacket useless against the deluge, her worn sneakers squelching with every step. It was 11 p.m. She'd just finished her second shift, breakfast cook at a diner, then evening custodian at an office building. Her daughter Sophia, 5 years old, was with Mrs. Chun next door. Linda had maybe 40 minutes before the late fee kicked in. She couldn't afford the late fee. The bus stop was 2 blocks away. Linda walked fast, head down, counting the money in her pocket. $17. Enough for tomorrow's groceries if she bought rice, beans, and the dented cans from the discount bin. That's when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the storm. Someone gasping. Linda stopped. Through the rain, she saw a shape crumpled against a building wall. A man, maybe 30, his dress shirt dark with something that wasn't water. Blood soaked his side, spreading across his abdomen. "Help," he whispered. "Please." Linda looked around. The street was empty. No cars. No witnesses. Just the rain and the dark and this dying stranger. She should keep walking. Sophia was waiting. Mrs. Chun would charge double after midnight. Linda had $17 and a bus to catch and a daughter who needed her mother alive, not bleeding out in an alley trying to save someone she didn't know. The man's eyes found hers. "Please." Linda knelt beside him. His skin was cold, his pulse thready. She pulled out her flip phone, the kind with minutes you bought on cards from gas stations. She had maybe 20 minutes left on it. No signal. The hospital was 8 blocks away. An ambulance would take 15 minutes minimum in this storm, if they came to this neighborhood at all. Linda knew from experience that emergency services treated zip codes differently. The man's breathing was getting shallower. Linda made a decision that would break her back and change her life. She was 5'3" and weighed maybe 115 pounds. The man was over 6 feet, probably 180. But Linda had been a single mother for 5 years. She'd carried sleeping children, grocery bags, and the weight of impossible choices. She knew how to bear more than she should. "I'm going to move you," she said. "It's going to hurt." She got her arms under his shoulders and lifted. Pain screamed through her spine. Her legs shook. The man groaned, but didn't cry out. He was too far gone for that. Linda had carried Sophia on her back since she was born. This was just weight. Just burden. Just one foot in front of the other until you couldn't go anymore. And then one more step after that. She stumbled forward. The rain blurred everything. Her shoes slipped on the wet concrete. The man's blood soaked into her jacket, warm against her chest. Linda thought about Sophia sleeping at Mrs. Chen's, her small face peaceful, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. If Linda collapsed out here, who would take care of her daughter? But if she left this man to die, how could she look Sophia in the eye and tell her the world was worth believing in? 1 block. 2 blocks. Linda's vision started to tunnel. Her arms were screaming. Her back felt like it was tearing apart. She tasted copper in her mouth. She'd bitten through her lip without realizing it. 3 blocks. 4 blocks. "Stay with me," she whispered to the man. "Stay with me." She didn't know if she was talking to him or herself. A car passed, spraying water. It didn't stop. Linda kept walking. 5 blocks. 6 blocks. Her left knee gave out and she nearly fell, catching herself at the last second. The man's head lolled against her shoulder. 7 blocks. The hospital's emergency entrance glowed through the rain like salvation. Linda staggered through the automatic doors and collapsed. The man fell from her arms onto the clean white floor, leaving a trail of blood. Nurses rushed forward. Hands pulled the man away from her. Someone was shouting for a doctor. Linda tried to stand and couldn't. Her legs wouldn't work. Her back was on fire. A nurse knelt beside her. "Ma'am, are you injured? Is this your blood?" "Not mine," Linda managed. "Help him. Please help him. We've got him." "What's his name?" Linda realized she didn't know. "I found him. 8 blocks away. He was dying." The nurse's eyes widened. "You carried him 8 blocks?" "Had to." "Ma'am, you need to be examined. I have to go." Linda forced herself to stand. Everything hurt. My daughter. I have to get my daughter. She stumbled toward the exit. Behind her, chaos erupted as they rushed the dying stranger into surgery. Linda never looked back. She caught the last bus home, arrived at 12:47 a.m., paid Mrs. Chun the late fee that took her last $7, and carried Sophia to their apartment. The next morning, Linda's back hurt so badly she could barely move. But she made breakfast anyway, got Sophia ready for kindergarten, and went to her first shift at the diner. She never told anyone what she'd done. What was there to tell? She'd done what anyone would do. Except most people wouldn't. And she was about to learn that someone had been paying attention. Linda forgot about the stranger in the ring. She had no choice. Survival didn't leave room for memory. Her back ached for weeks after that night, a deep grinding pain that never quite went away. She couldn't afford a doctor, so she learned to move differently, to lift with her legs, to sleep on the floor when the mattress hurt too much. Sophia asked once why Mama walked funny now. Linda told her she'd slipped on wet pavement. It wasn't exactly a lie. Years blurred together in the way they do when you're working 2 jobs and raising a child alone. Sophia grew taller. Linda grew more tired. The apartment stayed small. The paychecks stayed thin. But they had each other, and most nights there was food on the table, and that was more than some people had. Linda never went back to that hospital. She avoided that neighborhood entirely. Too many memories of rain and blood and choices that could have gone differently. She didn't know that in the weeks after that August night, a man named Marcus Webb had asked every nurse, every doctor, every security guard at Seattle General about the woman who'd saved his life. He'd been stabbed in a mugging gone wrong, left to bleed out in an alley. 15 minutes more, and he would have died. Someone had carried him 8 blocks in a storm. Someone small, the nurses said. Exhausted, soaked in rain and blood. She'd refused treatment and disappeared. Marcus had nothing to go on. No name, no contact information. Just the memory of arms that refused to let him fall and a voice that whispered, "Stay with me," through the dark. He'd spent months searching, hired investigators, checked hospital visitor logs. Found nothing. The woman had vanished like she'd never existed. Eventually, Marcus went back to his life. He'd been a junior analyst at a tech startup before the stabbing. Afterward, something shifted in him. He worked harder, took bigger risks. The company grew. 5 years later, it went public. Marcus became wealthy in the way that still felt unreal. Numbers and accounts that didn't match the person he'd been before a stranger's kindness saved him. But he never stopped looking for the woman in the rain. Present-day Linda stood in her kitchen, staring at the check. $480,000. More money than she'd earned in 20 years combined. Sophia was home from college. Full scholarship to University of Washington, Linda's proudest achievement. She stood behind her mother now, reading the letter over her shoulder. "Mom," Sophia breathed. "Is this real?" Linda's hands shook. The letter explained everything. Marcus had finally found her through a combination of emergency room records, old security footage, and a detective who specialized in cold cases. It had taken 2 decades, but he'd never given up. "You asked for nothing," the letter read. "You saved my life and disappeared. I spent 20 years trying to understand that kind of goodness. I built a company, made money I never expected, but none of it meant anything while the debt I owed remained unpaid. This isn't payment. How do you pay for your own life? This is acknowledgement. You were a single mother working 2 jobs. I checked the records. You made $8.50 an hour that year. You had $17 in your pocket that night. You could have walked past me. Should have, probably. But you didn't. I live because you decided I mattered more than your own safety. I want you to know that I didn't waste the gift you gave me. I've tried to be worthy of it." The letter included a phone number, a request to meet if Linda was willing. No pressure, no strings. Sophia was crying. "Mom, you never told me." "Nothing to tell," Linda said quietly. I couldn't leave him there. You could have died. I didn't." Linda touched her back, where the old injury still ached on rainy days. "And he didn't. That's what mattered." The check sat on the counter between them. Life-changing money. Sophia's student loans could be paid off. Linda could stop working doubles. They could move somewhere without mold in the bathroom and heat that actually worked. "Are you going to call him?" Sophia asked. Linda looked at the phone number. Part of her wanted to refuse everything. The money, the meeting, the attention. She'd done what she did because it was right, not because she expected anything back. But another part of her, The part that was so tired of struggling, of watching her daughter eat ramen so they could make rent, of wearing shoes with holes and jackets worn through at the elbows. That part wanted to say yes. Not for herself. For Sophia. For the future her daughter deserved. Linda picked up her phone. Marcus Webb answered on the second ring. His voice was older than she remembered, steadier, but she knew it instantly. "This is Linda Torres," she said. Silence. Then, "Thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either. Can we meet?" "I'd like to. I need to say thank you to your face. After 20 years. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. Linda insisted on paying for her own coffee. Old habits of independence died hard. When she arrived the next day, she recognized Marcus immediately. The young man bleeding in the rain had become someone polished, successful, wearing a confidence that came from surviving death. But his eyes were the same. Grateful. Searching. He stood when she entered. "Mrs. Torres." "Linda," she corrected. "Just Linda." They sat. For a moment, neither spoke. "What do you say to someone who gave you back your life?" "The check," Linda began. "Isn't enough," Marcus interrupted. "Could never be enough. But it's what I can offer. It's too much. You carried me 8 blocks in a storm while bleeding internally from the strain. The doctors told me later that you'd herniated a disc in your spine doing it. You permanently injured yourself saving a complete stranger." His voice cracked. "How do I repay that?" Linda thought about the years of back pain. The nights she couldn't pick Sophia up because her spine wouldn't allow it. The jobs she couldn't take because they required heavy lifting. She never regretted it. Not once. "You lived," she said simply. "That's the repayment." Marcus pulled out a folder. Inside were photographs, a wedding, a baby, birthday parties, graduations. A life and images. "This is my daughter, Claire," he said, pointing to a little girl blowing out candles. "She just turned 7. And this is my wife, Jennifer. We met 4 years after you saved me." He looked up, his eyes bright. "Claire exists because you didn't walk past me that night. My wife has a husband because you decided a stranger's life mattered." Linda touched the photo of the little girl. She had Marcus's eyes. "Jennifer knows the whole story," Marcus continued. "I told her on our first date. I said I was only alive because someone I'd never met decided I was worth destroying her back for. She said she wanted to meet you someday. To say thank you for the life we have together." He pulled out another document. "The check is just the beginning. I've established a fund in your name at Seattle General. It provides emergency assistance to patients who can't afford care. Every year, it helps about 50 people who might otherwise die because they're poor or uninsured or just unlucky." Linda's throat tightened. "Marcus, I know you don't need recognition. You proved that by vanishing for 20 years. But other people need to know that goodness like yours exists. That someone will stop in the rain. That they're not invisible." He slid a business card across the table. "I want to offer you a job. Director of Community Outreach for my company. Your job would be to identify people and organizations doing the kind of work you did. The invisible work that keeps communities alive. We'd fund them. Support them. Make sure they're not carrying the weight alone anymore. I'm not qualified for. You're the most qualified person I know. You have a PhD in what it means to care about people nobody else sees. That's rarer than any business degree." Linda looked at the card. The salary listed was more than she currently made in a year. Full benefits. Retirement plan. An office with her name on it. "I can't accept charity," she said quietly. "This isn't charity. It's a job offer. You'd be working, making decisions about where resources go and who deserves help. You'd be good at it because you understand what it costs to have nothing and give anyway." Sophia's college loans flashed through Linda's mind. The apartment with the broken heating. The car that needed replacing. All the things she'd deferred, denied, done without. But more than that, the chance to help others the way Marcus was helping her. To be on the other side of the equation for once. To say yes, you matter, to people who'd been told all their lives they didn't. "Can I think about it?" Linda asked. "Take all the time you need." Marcus reached across the table, offering his hand. "Whatever you decide, the fund exists. The check clears. You don't owe me anything more. But I wanted you to know, you didn't just save my life that night. You showed me what a life could be for. I spent 20 years trying to be worthy of that gift." Linda shook his hand. His grip was firm, alive, warm. She remembered how cold he'd been in the rain, how close to gone. "You were always worthy," she said. "That's why I stopped." They talked for another hour. Marcus showed her pictures of Claire learning to ride a bike, of family vacations, of ordinary happy moments that added up to a life. Linda showed him pictures of Sophia at her college graduation, wearing the cap and gown they'd saved 2 years to afford. "Your daughter's beautiful," Marcus said. "Yours too." When they parted, Marcus hugged her, carefully, mindful of the back injury he'd inadvertently caused 2 decades ago. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Linda rode the bus home in a daze. The check was in her purse. The job offer was in her pocket. The weight of 20 years of struggling felt suddenly, impossibly lighter. Sophia was waiting when she got home. Well, Linda told her everything. The photos, the fund, the job offer. When she finished, Sophia was crying again. "Mom, you have to take it. You have to. It feels like someone finally seeing you. Like someone finally saying thank you for all the times you put everyone else first. Mom, you've been invisible your whole life. Let someone see you. Please." Linda thought about all the years of working in the dark, of cleaning offices at night, of cooking breakfast for people who never looked up from their phones. She thought about carrying Sophia as a baby, carrying groceries, carrying the weight of rent and bills and impossible choices. She thought about carrying a dying stranger 8 blocks in the rain because it was right, because he mattered, because she couldn't live with herself if she didn't. Maybe it was time to let someone else carry weight for a while. Linda called Marcus that night. "I'll take the job." 6 months later, Linda stood in front of a room full of nonprofit directors, community organizers, and volunteers. Her title was Director of Community Outreach, but her real job was simpler. Find the people doing good in the dark and bring them into the light. Behind her, a presentation showed the 50 organizations they'd funded in the last 6 months. Homeless shelters, food banks, programs for at-risk youth. Each one run by people who worked second shifts and gave from empty pockets and never expected recognition. People like she'd been. "We're looking for the invisible helpers," Linda told the room. The single mothers working 2 jobs who still volunteer at their kids' schools. The janitors who pay for students' lunch debts from their own paychecks. The nurses who stay late without pay. If you know someone who gives when they have nothing left to give, tell us. We want to help them the way they help others. After the presentation, a young woman approached her, maybe 25, wearing a uniform from a fast food restaurant. "Miss Torres, I just wanted to say, I'm one of those people. Working 2 jobs, single mom, barely making it. And today I helped someone who'd collapsed on the street. I was late for my shift and I stopped anyway, and I got fired for it." Her voice cracked. "I don't regret it, but I don't know how I'm going to make rent now." Linda remembered rain and blood and a choice that should have ruined her, but somehow, 2 decades later, had saved her instead. "What's your name?" Linda asked. "Rebecca." Linda pulled out a card. "Call this number tomorrow. We have an emergency assistance fund for people exactly like you." And Rebecca, you did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you differently. The young woman left crying, clutching the card like a lifeline. Sophia joined her mother as the room emptied. She was volunteering with the foundation now, working with outreach programs while finishing her degree. "Mom, that woman, she reminded me of you." "She reminded me of me too," Linda said. "That's why we're here. So people like her don't stay invisible forever." They walked out together into the Seattle rain, gentle tonight, not the destroying kind. Linda's back still ached on days like this, a permanent reminder of the choice she'd made. She didn't mind. Some scars were worth carrying. In her office, framed on the wall, was a photograph. Linda and Marcus and their families together. Sophia and Claire were laughing at something off camera. Jennifer had her arm around Linda's shoulders. Marcus stood between them all, alive and grateful and surrounded by the life that one stranger's kindness had made possible. Below it, a quote Linda had chosen. "We save ourselves by saving others." She'd learned that truth 20 years ago in the ring. Now she got to teach it to a world that too often forgot that the most important people are usually the ones nobody sees, and the greatest power is deciding someone else matters more than your own comfort. Linda locked her office and headed home. Tomorrow she'd find more invisible helpers. Tonight, she'd have dinner with her daughter and sleep in a bed that didn't hurt her back and know that somewhere, people were being helped because she'd stopped in the rain all those years ago. The weight she'd carried had finally turned into wings, and she was teaching others to fly.